Okay, guys, I am going to answer a reader question the best that I can. Sometimes I get these questions and I'm like, ooh, I don't know, but I think about it a little bit and draw on some of my ministry and counseling experience in the hopes that it will help. So here is the question. How do we transition to being parents of adults? And I think it's a great question. I think that people underestimate what this is actually going to do in their identity and in their marriage and in their understanding of themselves. For some people, maybe it comes naturally, but for most moms and dads that I know, the transition to their kids being out of the house, the transition to their kids being adults is not a really easy one. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. First of all, most parents are also going through a bit of a mid or sort of upper midlife identity shaking up of themselves, particularly if they've lost their true north a little bit as parents. Sometimes I think we lose our true north. And what I mean by that is we lose access to our real voice about who we are. I think sometimes we lose that because life is really busy and we begin to just live a life that is orchestrated by our children's schedule. And when our children are gone, all of a sudden it's like we've been dreaming and we wake up and we realize that we feel like this with our spouse, that we haven't really been aligned for a long time, but it's been easy to ignore because the kids have been around and we've focused on that as our sort of project. And now that project is complete and we don't feel like we know each other. And that's a real thing. It happens to a lot of people. It's a time where people, sometimes marriages break at that point. And in order to avoid that, I think there are some things that you can do early on. Even, my husband and I are raising teenagers. These are things that we're already thinking about, knowing that kind of we're coming to the finish line on at least our oldest child as far as living in our home. So a couple of things that we find ourselves asking. The first question that we ask ourselves is this a marriage-centered home? Meaning, do our kids and us as mom and dad recognize that our marriage is what is the center of this house? So the Lord obviously being the center in, around, and through our family, but are we organizing our life around our marriage, or are we organizing our life around our children? Now, this is completely countercultural. That's not what culture says to do. But organizing around our marriage is the way that we express to our kids, hey, Dad and I are going to talk about something and we're going to make a decision and you're not part of it. It's going out on date nights. It's trying to take some trips with some friends where we're sort of honoring our marriage above every other thing in the schedule. We're not always great at it, but it is a good question. Like, do we look forward to a future beyond when we're raising children? And can we plan a little bit for that future? And if you're not married, if you're a single mom or a single dad, this is a hard and daunting question because it feels lonely, but it's a good, important question to ask. What have I been made for in addition to raising these kids? What are some things or some dreams or even some things that I enjoy that I have not done for a long time because of children, and how can I look forward to those so that I'm having a right-sized perspective of what my life's going to look like when my children are adults? The second thing is a question of thinking about when you were raising your children through the whole life cycle. So let's say your kids have just gotten, one of your adult children has gotten married, or all of your adult children are now out of the house and sort of providing for themselves. I think a great question at the end of that is to say, from birth until launch, what were some seasons I really enjoyed and why? And what I'm getting at is trying to help people understand the way they've been gifted and wired for their children that they could then apply to the kingdom of God or to the local church. So if I'm, let's say, in my 40s and I'm thinking, I really loved middle school, but what I loved about it was I was great at kind of organizing how the kids had an opportunity to be a part of life, then okay, wait, maybe I didn't know that I enjoyed that, and that there's some leadership roles for me that I might consider in my church or in a parachurch or nonprofit organization. So the question is to really look back and not look back with fear and look back with, I can't believe this time's over and I'm never going to get it back, but actually to say, what did I really enjoy that maybe was unexpected? And how might I take the time that I used to use for my children and for that life and actually apply it for the good of others? There are endless and abundant opportunities to provide the relational nurture and skill that we used to provide as parents. And if that's really a sweet spot for you, there's just an abundance. I mean, all you have to do is open your eyes and look around. There are tutoring opportunities, there are coaching opportunities, there are opportunities to be in schools. There are so many places, but so often I think that we get so wrapped up in what we still want to have with our children that we don't actually see that we've been given some space where we can bless and provide for other children or other people that our kids no longer need us to do. If we're really torqued up about what this relationship with our adult children is going to look like, and we don't give the space needed for our adult children to become who they are, and we don't create life with more relationships and more activities, then we're just continuing to live in this bound, child-centered life, even though we don't have children anymore that need to be raised in that way. That's not only going to be bad for you, it's going to be bad for your marriage, and it's going to actually be bad for your adult child. So it's worth exploring, who am I been made to be, and how might I begin to stretch into some new places in the community, in the church, in a nonprofit that might need exactly what's been developed in me because I've raised children. And the final one is let your children grow. Let your adult children change. We've got all of this history and all of this life and all of these memories with our kids. We have strong feelings and we have a sense of really knowing who they are, the good and the bad. And that is well and good. But at the same time, our kids, because they're healthy and because they're actually doing what needs to happen in an individual, which is when they differentiate from their parents, we have to allow them to grow and change, which means just appreciating and enjoying them for who they are and being a good student of how you can serve them. That sounds weird because it's like, well, I'd love for my children to actually think about how they could serve me, okay? But given that this is about you and you're the parent, how can I serve my kid? What would actually serve them right now? Do they need a sounding board? They want to be able to have me listen to a lot of things. Can I just help provide for some of their practical needs that might be hard for them? If you've got two kids who just got married and both work full time, it might be like, hey, I'm available to meet the plumber at your house. Would you like me to do that? Just ways that you can offer to be in their life, in almost like you have to treat them as if it's a new relationship and you are not imposing or over-imposing into their life beyond the way that you would interact with another adult. That alone can be a good starting point to a rich and meaningful relationship as two adults now, no longer as a parent and a child, although there will be times where that role will continue. But for the majority of the time that you spend with your adult children, you're actually looking at sort of a friendship up here, more of an adult to adult relationship. And that takes some change, especially on the parent side, but it's well worth it because what you'll probably find out is that you've really raised great kids and it's great to see them thrive. All right, that's it.